Hey everyone, I've just made a very important video and I'll leave you the link to it underneath this video, but it's really serious what's happened to our NHS and what NHS staff are having to deal with. I mean, they're on the front lines of facing austerity and the impacts of it on the British populace. And there's been a very disturbing rise in doctors' suicides, and this was from September 2018. Doctors' mental health at tipping point. More than 300 overworked NHS nurses have died by suicide. Figures spark call for inquiry into alarming levels of nurse suicide. This is 2019. Hugely alarming nurse suicide figures amid claims their cries for help were repeatedly ignored. And we've got the winter crisis. Now, you know, I ask myself, how must it feel to be a member of the NHS staff working on a minimum wage, many of them having to place themselves in serious debt to borrow huge sums of money just to train to be a nurse. They're working for free, they don't get paid. They're having to borrow money to train to work in an NHS hospital because that's how they complete their training. And face the horrors that this society with its austerity has thrown at the door of the NHS. I mean, we know that suicide rates are in the tens of thousands, but then there's all the many more tens of thousands of failed suicides that end up at the NHS. There's the people that end up there that then the NHS have to send back onto the street because they're homeless. There's the lack of beds, there's the shortage of resources, there's the understaff. You know, this NHS is short of 34,000 nurses. This is directly Tory. Tories have done this. How must it be feeling for those NHS staff to be literally putting themselves on the line, facing the absolute worst horror that this society throws up, knowing that it's for a population that by a landslide voted for the Tories that have put them in that situation? How must they feel? And this is what I mean about this landslide and why we shouldn't accept it, because it isn't true. Could a nation possibly be that stupid? Could it be realistic that Britain is that stupid to vote for a landslide for a party that has done this to our NHS and now wants to sell it all off? That has driven our doctors and nurses to suicide? That has driven how many people to an early grave? By the end of 2020, I think it's estimated to be 200,000 people dead through austerity. And they've voted, the people of this country, by a landslide, have voted for 50 years austerity, without an NHS, without even their human rights, with no workers' rights, with no benefit system, with nothing, except they'll have got Brexit done, and under martial law. And that's why I've left you that other video under here, because martial law is very, very serious, and the kind of people that will be holding the guns on our streets, the far-right fascists who are now offering to provide security to Boris Johnson, EDL, or Britain First as they're called now. We cannot accept this. We are going to have to come out. Look, our forebears gave their lives for the kind of manifesto that Jeremy Corbyn was about to deliver. That's what the men and women of post-World War II, we voted for that. That's our culture. Right? They gave their lives for it. We are going to have to stand up now for our children's rights to that. And I say, you know, we're going to have to come out. We're going to have to do an Iceland-style protest. A peaceful protest, but we come out, we just stand in the streets, we just bang our pots and pans, and we do not budge until this government is gone. And yes, we do need to have an investigation into this election, because it does not make sense. It does not compute. It makes no sense. Believe you me, if Boris Johnson, everywhere he went, millions, thousands of people were coming out to celebrate him, millions of people joining the Tory party, do you think they would have accepted a landslide victory against the opposition? That actually people were booing and jeering, and the leader was too scared even to show his face in public or attend a TV debate or interview, and had to hide in a fridge? Wouldn't the Tories be asking questions? Wouldn't these far-right fascists be asking questions if that was the situation they were facing with? That Boris Johnson was the one receiving huge amounts of public acclaim and had a brilliant manifesto. But instead the opposition wins. The guy who everybody shunned and jeered, and he had to hide away in a fridge from TV news reporters. We need to contest this, and we need to do it for our NHS staff, because how must they be feeling? Talk about demoralised. But they've still got to go to work for a pittance. They've still got to clean up the blood and the sick. They've still got to stitch people up. They've still got to pump people's stomachs, the failed suicides. They've still got to perform the operations, knowing full well that it's going down, 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 until in come the corporations from America, ready to vamp off the fact that British people get ill. Literally vampires. And that's why we have an NHS, to stop that kind of vampirism from attacking people when they're at the weakest point and they're ill and they need the medicines, and there's some corporation there saying, oh, how much do you need this medicine then? Well, you know, we're putting it up to 100 quid. Oh, it's gone up 200 quid, 300 quid, 400 quid. What about £1,000 a month? You're a diabetic. You'll die without it. How much will you pay for it? Here you go. That's what we've given to our children. I don't accept this I don't accept this general election result because it is impossible. I just don't believe that the British people are that stupid. I don't believe any population are that stupid to vote for 50 years austerity, scrapping their children's human rights, scrapping their workers' rights, scrapping environmental protection laws, scrapping health and safety regulations, selling off our NHS to Donald Trump and facing martial law and life on rations, and for 50 years austerity. Sorry. And all the people who think, well, at least the immigrants will be out. I tell you, no immigrants will be wanting to come here anyway. But no, the immigrants won't be out because the corporations can bring in as many people as they like from abroad. Understand this. That's why they don't want to invest in education for British people, because they can rely on poorer countries to train people, and then they'll bring those people from those poorer countries to work in Britain. It will be the reverse of what immigration traditionally seemed to provide, which was actually low-paid workers doing the jobs that British people didn't want to do. Well, that's going to be reversed, because the British people will be doing all the jobs that immigrants were doing, while immigrants will be doing the better paid jobs, because there's one stipulation about bringing staff in from abroad, is that they have to be paid over £30,000 a year. So the people that did vote Tory, I'm sure that you will be realising soon what a huge mistake you've made. But I believe that the majority of British people did not vote Tory. I do not believe that Boris Johnson got a landslide. I can't accept it, because there's motive, intent, opportunity, and the criminal record that they've already broken the law in order to get Brexit done. And straight after they've broken the law and been found guilty of it, they said they'd break the law again to get Brexit done. And this landslide is evidence of it. So I ask everybody, please spare a thought for the people in the NHS, and spare a thought for your children and their future. Spare a thought for our forebears who suffered so much, suffered the kind of poverty that nobody in Britain, the vast majority of people in Britain, don't know, except the people living on the street homeless. They know it. The NHS staff know it. They witness it every day. We need to raise our society up. We need to raise the people up. We cannot become a tax haven, because that is what they are going to do. That is what Sajid Javid has full intention to do. Chancellor of the Exchequer, he wants to turn Britain into Singapore on the Thames. Sweeping fiscal tax cuts, scrapping of environmental protection laws, environmental protection rights. I'll show you the link. Here you go. This is it. Brexit and the future of tax havens. Okay. Mr. Javid. This was before Boris was elected by the Tories to stand as their leader. Mr. Javid, a serious contender to replace Theresa May, is now Chancellor of the Exchequer. He worked as a banker in Singapore, has spoken about using tax cuts and deregulation as part of a shock and awe strategy to transform the post-Brexit UK economy. What the Singapore on the Thames visionaries appear to have in mind can be summed up as a commitment to sweeping tax cuts for corporations and mobile rich people, tax wars as a fiscal weapon, tax measures such as accelerated capital allowances to attract mobile investments to UK, comprehensive deregulation, removal of social and environmental protections, weak or non-existent compliance with international anti-money laundering measures, retaining golden visa arrangements to provide residence rights of wealthy non-British citizens. That includes voting rights, increasing exposure to oligarchs and corrupt illicit financial flows. That's what we're facing. That is what they want with their hard Brexit. Britain is going to become yet another crown tax haven territory, because most of the tax havens on this planet are owned by the crown. Okay, they're crown territories, and that is what Brexit is protecting, the crown tax haven territories, and the crowns and the rich people's tax breaks and their fraudulent fake businesses, right? They're protecting. That's whose interests they're protecting. Everybody else is going to suffer. And meanwhile, we'll be turning up at, all you people who voted Tory, you'll be turning up at the hospital, won't you, when you get ill? When your parents or a member of your family gets ill. And what are you going to do when it's gone? The NHS is gone. Because do not think that any of you are going to be able to afford what's going to happen. We are talking about payments to go and visit your GP. So, like I've said in my previous video, if we're going to put this right now, we are going to need to do in Iceland. We need to come out. We need to demand an independent investigation. We want independent investigation Not this government investigating itself. We want independent investigation, perhaps from the UN, to come in and investigate this general election now. Investigate these very strange results. Very strange. Nobody expected it. Oh, but, you know, the Tory government polls were trying to prepare us for it, weren't they? Oh, you know, Boris Johnson's ahead in the polls, even as we're seeing him scurrying away from the communities that he'd gone to visit, because they had nothing to say except express loathing towards the man. Jeremy Corbyn, they were sure they were going to win this election. They're seasoned veteran politicians. They understand, they know the feel for the public. They knew they had the support. And yet it's Johnson who gets the landslide. And meanwhile, we're going to just leave all our hospital staff. How many more of them are going to die next year? And why? Because they've got that vocation to heal people, to be there for us. It's about time the people in this country started giving something back to the people who were there for us, as opposed to these Etonian toe rags.